Hey, family. Welcome to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. I am your host, Rodney Butler. And today I have two of the Black Man's Roundtable contributors. By popular demand, we are doing a community leader series. And in this episode, we are going to concentrate on a little bit of the political things that's going on at the national level. And today I have on Mr. Rodney Littles. He is the owner of Rodney J. Littles Associate Management and Financial Advisors. He is a member of the Fulton County Reparations Task Force. He's also a former Georgia Democratic Party leader, and he is a contributor of the Black Man's Roundtable. We also have Mr. Bobby Fryer on today, and he is a contributor of the Black Man's Roundtable. Today, we are all very proud to say that we are members of the Divine Nine fraternities, and that being said, I am a member. I am the social action director for my local Phi Beta Sigma fraternity incorporated, and Rodney Littles, he is a social action member of his local Omega Psi Phi fraternity incorporated, and Bobby Fryer is the former pole march, I believe, right, Bobby? Of your local, yep, and he's currently the political action director for his local chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. We are very proud to be members of those, but however, tonight we are speaking in our individual personal capacities. And with that said, gentlemen, we're going to get started. And today, what we're going to be talking about is our individual thoughts on VP Harris and her being the presumptive nominee, the Democratic nominee for the President of the United States. We may even get a little bit in on her VP choices and what we think about those. We're also going to talk about some recent Supreme Court of the United States rulings, and that's going to feed us right into talking about our main subjects tonight, which is Project 2025 and Agenda 47, that I know that Rodney Littles want to really dive into tonight. So with that being said, gentlemen, let's jump right into this VP Harris and her being the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. What do we think about it?
Was AKA versus KKK. Go ahead, Bobby.
Hey, that's it. That's the slogan. Keep spreading it around. First of all, how this all happened so quickly. We're talking about really roughly a little more than 48 hours. How it all went down. I know from the very jump when it was even suggested that he may step down.
Amen,
there was
brother.
no other option other than Kamala Harris. Some people have said, like, well, why? And the answer is really simple. If you had gone into a contested convention trying to have it open and you skip over her, you lose the black community and especially black women voters.
I agree with you
and
10%.
You can't ignore that.
There really wasn't
plus,
any other option.
Her resume speaks for itself. She's qualified. She's been doing the job. Why not promote her
4 years
to the
ago
top?
as his running mate?
That's my initial thoughts. I'll yield to
his
Mr. Littles on whatever you may want to add.
She's very qualified, very qualified, and the opposition is going to try to paint her as a DEI job. Well, what does that mean? DEI, in my mind, I'm from Tulsa, Greenwood, and when you say use that terminology in a derogatory manner now, that's the N word to me.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying. This N woman, that's the job that they're saying. That's what I hear. So they're gonna play the racial card like they always do to try to manufacture this unacceptable, quote, candidate. The truth of the matter is, she's polling very well after the first 48 hours. She's up 2 to 4 points in a couple of key polls. So I don't think it was such a bad decision, to be honest with you. I think the big issue is going to be how smoothly they transition into the Biden apparatus. Because a friend of mine was saying to me today, well, you know, they should have picked somebody else and they had a whole new campaign. I said, yeah, with less than 100 days? This is a smooth transition. They've already changed the names on the campaign offices to Kamala Harris for president. The infrastructure's in place, the team's in place, the offices in place. There's no major change other than the message and the candidate. And I love it because now the question is, who's too old to be president?
Now, who's the old candidate in the race? So, and I agree with everything you guys said. But what I want also for this audience to understand that she is the presumptive nominee. Not to get too far into the, the political weeds of it.
Right.
But you know, right now she's presumptive because none of these delegates have officially voted. Now, so I say that to say this. I hope there's not or won't be any shenanigans come a couple of weeks when I think they're supposed to do the phone in vote or whatever. I hope there's not any shenanigans to try to be slick with this. Even though, like we just heard today or whatever, California, I think Tennessee was the first state to their entire delegation, their entire Democratic delegation, said, hey, yes, she basically get all of our support. Support and vote is two different things. So we want to make sure that if they try to start any shenanigans with the actual official votes, to make her no longer the presumptive nominee, but the actual nominee, then we need to do exactly what we did, but except this time it's not money. And what we did, and I know everybody knows this by now that watches the Black Man's Roundtable, you got to know this, which is what happened with those women on Saturday night, Sunday night or whatever. And then what happened with the brothers as far as black men, raising the money that we raised yesterday, 1.2 million. The black women raised 1.6 million, all within 2 hours, or whatever. All three of us was on that call all the way to the end, so we know, that was a very powerful call. But this time, if they do any shenanigans, we need to start making phone calls. Forget about the donation. You get on the phone and you call your senator, your congressman, even your state folks, or whatever. And, again, I'm not predicting any of that. I just want everybody to know that we are calling her the presumptive nominee, and that's what everybody on TV is calling her, because that is what she is. So, and you brothers can feel free to chime in on that if you would like to. Again, I'm not predicting anything, but people do shenanigans. But even though I know that the base of this party, the base of the Democratic Party, which is people that look like you two guys and people that look like, our wives or girlfriends or whatever, that, they know who the base of this party is, especially what we've done over the past, since her, since since Joe Biden dropped out of the race. But I just want for you guys to help reiterate that about, shenanigans.
Good point. Well, the first shenanigans that are coming up, from what I'm hearing, the Republicans are going to file a complaint that the Democratic Party can't do this. But these are the Democratic Party rules. They're following the rules. Jamie was on the news today explaining what the process is. It's been in place.
Jamie Harris, the chair of the DNC.
That's correct. Jamie Harris, the chair. He already explained it. These are the party rules. And nobody from outside the party can come in and say, hey, we're suing you because you're violating, this is not right. That's nonsense. They're uncontrollable, unlawful, egotistical MAGA people. That's not going to happen. The process is in place, the rules are in place to be followed, and they will be followed.
They're already overreacting. I've already seen articles of impeachment being filed by the Republicans to get her off. They're talking about suing. Imagine
she's been doing
they want to sue to keep the older candidate on the ticket. How silly is that? So they are the reactions tell me that they fear Kamala Harris. They know that she is the right person to
Right.
speak to women voters about women's reproductive rights issues. They know, correct, they know by her being a former prosecutor, she's going to prosecute Trump
Correct.
on the world stage. See, there's not going to be any courtroom to cloak him from as he's
Yes.
had so far with the case he had up in New York,
Yes.
where he gets to have a press conference afterward and just lie and just talk about the judges and so on and so forth. No, this is going to be on the world stage. You're going to be put on trial
Yes.
because she has to take the approach of we got to go after this in the next 100 days. Take the kid
Yes, sir.
gloves off, play to win. Play to win. Make them squirm,
Yeah.
and I know we're going to talk about this later on. Put Project 2025 on them. Make them own it. Make them own it and answer to this stuff because now they're trying to separate themselves. And I don't want to get ahead of, I know what we got on the show topics. They're trying to separate themselves kind of from it by saying, no,
Right.
that's not our official platform. Yeah, it's your platform. It's what you want to do.
Right.
And now that it's out in the open and it's being dissected for the public to see and go through, now they're worried about it. So all the reactions I see from the other side
Yeah,
are
that's a good
number
one.
one, it's like a full court press. They're right now looking to see where's the defense coming from. Because now that
Well,
they're caught on their heels.
Brother
I
Rodney,
wouldn't even be surprised
seems
if
to me
there's
that
a
the biggest
change
decision
with
that's
their VP.
on the table right
which
now,
would go
who's
against
gonna be the
everything they're
VP?
complaining about right now.
Would you agree?
So, you
Yes,
know,
sir.
it's you watch the
Yes, sir.
reactions and you see that, yeah, there's something
What are
there
your
you're
thoughts
afraid
on
of.
that?
They
It
realize.
is. So I
you
can't
know,
wait for the debate.
my
leave it
thoughts
there.
on it, Rodney, is this: is they chose that JD Vance guy based on, this is my belief, based on that they thought that they had this thing in the bag. So you pick this deeply I don't know, I don't want to talk about folks' religion or whatever his situation is, but at any rate, this guy believes that if women don't have babies like Kamala Harris has never had a child, then they are worthless. So they have this guy who's already been deeply culturally conditioned by the extreme right. Okay,
Yes.
but you also have a Wall Street guy. This guy was a hedge fund guy. And I think he was a guy that was. I don't think Donald Trump chose this guy because I cannot see Donald Trump choosing a guy that's about 40 years or so his junior. I think the women say he's a good-looking guy or whatever, and all this. He was a Marine, and so I think this guy was picked, hand-selected by the Heritage Foundation, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later on when we talk about Project 2025, because he have these deep cultural beliefs about women and stuff like that, and abuse and babies, but also he also understand. And then I think the billionaires picked him because he is a money guy. He do understand the money. And so I think that they figured we got a guy for the next 40 years. We got a guy for the next 40 years, 35, 40 years to play like a puppet, because they know that they could not, and they could keep him under wraps, but I think they knew that they could not keep Donald Trump under wraps like that. Mm-hmm. So that's my thought on it. That's my thought on it, Rodney.
Well, some of what I heard. Exactly.
Yeah, and fired him. This man had the most disruptive cabinet. You haven't heard anything about Joe Biden's cabinet, people leaving or coming or nothing, because you know why? It hasn't been happening. Go ahead, Rodney.
But Rodney.
Yeah, well, the scuttlebutt is that
Rodney,
Junior,
he always picks the best people, though.
the former president's son, was very close to J.D. Vance prior to him running for the U.S. Senate.
Correct.
And knew the money folks that were close to him and leveraged that. My understanding is he lobbied very hard for J.D. Vance to be on the ticket. So that's some of the backroom scuttlebutt I've heard as it relates to that. But the truth of the matter is, as you say, they were looking for a younger person who was consistent with the Heritage Foundation's philosophies. And they were even willing to go with someone who called the prior president Hitler. Talked about him like a dog. That's amazing to me. But He does that with everybody and takes them back afterwards. He talks about everybody like a dog and lets them talk about him like a dog, and then he, gets them back in line. And that's kind of what, it's kind of like a thug. I'm from Brooklyn and Queens, New York originally. I went to school in Brooklyn and grew up in Queens. And I remember the former president and how he played us in New York. So I wasn't surprised at all about the personality that the people were getting. They just didn't know.
And you guys up there, in the Northeast, in New York especially, you guys really tried to warn the world about this guy. I remember you guys really tried to tell everybody about who this guy was, but I guess, they didn't believe you.
Yep, exactly. So in looking at the field, my thought would be the number one candidate for VP would be Andy.
Well, Rodney, before we move on to that one,
okay.
I do want to sum up what we think, about now with Kamala Harris being the presumptive nominee, and now that we know out there what presumptive really is, and that shenanigans still should be played. So we cannot play any games all the way up until November the 5th. I think that's election day. Yeah, November the 5th. And we can't play any games up until then, because just when you think, it's like, oh, she got this in the bag, she's a nominee, but see, she's really not right now. She's a presumptive nominee. Always look at the word in front of the word. Even after November the 5th, she will be what? Now you have to look at the word after the word president-elect. See, she's not there yet, so we have to wait all the way until January the 20th until she raised that hand. And so we have to know these words. And if you hear some stuff tonight, some words like we just talked about the Heritage Foundation, I want you guys out there that follow the Black Man's Roundtable, go out there and Google that stuff. We're not going to have a whole class on the Heritage Foundation, but just Google Heritage Foundation and just know that every single Republican president who has been installed since the Heritage Foundation has been around, at least 60 years that I know of, they go in there, they give them the platform of what they need to do for their first term, second term, and so forth. But I'll start out, gentlemen, with what I think about Kamala Harris, as far as her being the presumptive nominee. I think that it has woken up the two groups that this whole concept of the Black Man's Roundtable was started in the first place, which was to bring black men and youth out of the shadows, out of the political shadows. I felt that those two groups were marginalized. I felt that they was underestimated, and I felt that they was pushed in the shadows. And so what Kamala Harris has single-handedly done in one day, that I'm about to pull, and I don't have any hair, I got this hat on, my hair out over the last 3 years of trying to, she did it in 1 hour, and she brought the youth and she brought black men out of the shadows. So I wanted Kamala Harris to be the pick when she ran the first time, but it is what it is. But now that she's here, okay, she has energized. I am absolutely ecstatic with the pick. We were on that call last night. Do not let nobody gaslight you, black men. Do not let nobody gaslight you when they say black men do not like Kamala Harris. Well, if black men don't like Kamala Harris, well, about 20,000, and then there was another 15,000, about 35, 40,000 black men, gave $1 million in 2 hours, guys? Gave $1 million in 2 hours, and I am around a lot of black men, and what I can tell you is this right here, with organizations, different things I belong to, I have not met a black man so far who is not ecstatic about Kamala Harris being the presumptive nominee. So don't let them fool you, because gaslighting is just that. They'll keep telling you what you are. You don't like Kamala Harris. You don't like Kamala Harris. That's gaslighting. You you like Kamala Harris, and if you like the men that you see that comes on this Black Man Roundtable, and you look at them as somebody that you want to mimic yourself or at least learn from or whatever, then that don't believe that. All right.
I agree.
Yes, sir.
Set with low information black voters. There's a lot of low information voters out there already. And they're already starting with all she did was lock up black folks. They're already starting with that, which, by the way, if they're really researching, they will find out that's absolutely false. It's been debunked.
That's correct.
You're
right.
As far as that whole thing. So
that's right.
There's going to be a lot of that. We know it's coming down the road, but we know what is at stake, and at this point in time, I'm behind her. I will do what I can to make sure that this campaign.
Hey, Bobby, let me stop you 1 second. I want you to pick up about your thoughts on it. And Bobby, while Rodney is talking, I'll let you come back in. But it's telling me on the producer part for you to research. For you to refresh your browser. So refresh the page, okay? And then we just refresh it. You'll be fine. And then Rodney, you go ahead on and talk about your thing. Go ahead, Bobby, refresh.
Bobby's making an excellent point. Gentleman was on the call last night who's the digital producer and director. And what he was saying is exactly what Bobby was saying. There's going to be a tremendous amount of misinformation, lies, fake news, if you will, about what she stands for and what her history really is. And if you remember, in the last election, in 2016, the first time that the former president ran, Russia, their bots were actively pushing propaganda to black people, particularly black men, to discourage them from coming out to vote. And in 2016, I kept saying to people, it's about the court appointments. Rodney, what are you talking about, the court appointments? The federal bench. What are you talking about, Rodney? The federal bench, Supreme Court, the appeals courts. Whoever won in 2016 was going to be able to have a big impact on the replacing of vacancies in the whole federal court system, which are lifetime appointments, as Brother Rodney Butler said earlier. And those folks come from the Heritage Foundation. Going back to that. Those judges were screened and picked and pushed through the former president's administration that were from the Heritage Foundation, and their whole effort was to undo the progress in the area of civil rights and the advancement of the democracy to be inclusive. That's what we're dealing with. So when we talk about Vice President Harris, the presumptive nominee for President of the United States in the year of 2024, is bigger than her. It's bigger than Republican and Democrat. It's about what kind of society are we going to have? And what kind of bench are we going to live with? Are they going to continue to tear down our rights and uphold this MAGA agenda? Or we're going to be able to improve upon the appointments that the current President Biden has made? He's appointing more black judges than all the presidents combined, all of them, including the first black woman to the United States Supreme Court. This is what it's about, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it's about. It's about the lasting impact of an administration on policy and appointments, particularly to the bench.
Okay, Bobby, please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I mean, what Rodney was just saying is chess, not checkers, and they have known that, and too many of us get caught up not only in the misogynistic comments, but also about false information. And low information voters, especially those who I find a lot of times that spread a lot of this stuff are people that don't vote. They give the same answer every time. Oh, neither party's gonna do anything for you. But at the same time, you've got, like we said, a chess game being played. It's been about the Supreme Court, and those of us that don't have a current civics class or a civics refresher don't understand that. It's not just about the candidate. It's about the issues. It's a power play. And so a lot of us don't understand that or refuse to refresh their memory or just dig in and find the information for themselves. So it becomes very frustrating when you're constantly having to tell people from just from the very beginning, like, please pay attention to what's going on. Look at the whole scenario. Don't get caught up in this same echo chamber that is out there deliberately to get you not to vote. and is out there
Right.
deliberately to dissuade you from voting at all. Meanwhile, they're purging you off the voter rolls. They're asking for more restrictive ID. Just a whole bunch of other things that's going on that you have to see through the game. And so a lot of us just get distracted, and I think we just got to do our best in these next 100 plus days to make sure we get the right messaging out there, because the lies have already started, the misogynistic comments have already started. They don't help with women voters, period, when they do that. But the lies and the misinformation has already started about, all these black people she locked up, and it's not true. It's been debunked about what her role was and what actually happened. So people just need to take the time to research.
And what she locked up was criminals. Okay, she that's what prosecutors do.
Yes, they do.
Well, I find a lot of people don't even really know what a DA does, what what an attorney general does. They've got the ones that say this stuff. They act like Kamala's driving around in a patrol car and just pulling up and arresting black folks and sending them to jail. She's doing that, and she's on the jury, and she's the judge. It's nonsense.
It's absolute nonsense. And so she's a prosecutor. If you are somebody who is expecting because somebody is black that they're going to stop prosecuting you and let you do crime, unabated, then something is wrong with you anyway. But I'm not about to be distracted, because when we are not distracted, okay, and I'll say this, again, when we're not distracted, that $1.2 million that you're hearing in the news that these black men came about last night and did in 2 hours, when we are unified, and it's going to be 2 million in the next probably 10 hours, if not less than that. When we are unified and when we focus on something, look at what we can do. So don't get distracted by none of that stuff about black men and how she don't like black men don't like her. She don't like black men because she's married to a white man and all this stuff. You know what? Kamala Harris, she dated the mayor. I forget his name. The mayor of San Francisco.
Willie
Brown for a good long time.
Brown, right.
You know what I'm saying? And we found out that she
Montel
also
Williams
dated
too.
Montel Williams or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're not going to get into who somebody's sleeping with. That doesn't make you black. That doesn't make you anything. So don't believe in that stuff. And right now, I'll say one more thing, and that is that the Supreme Court, because Bobby hit on it a little bit. What they know is that Clarence Thomas, he's the oldest. See, they on this oldest trip. Remember, they opened up that Pandora's box about age. Now it's backfiring on them with Donald Trump, because now he's the oldest. Guess what? Clarence Thomas is the oldest. I don't think his health is that good. They know that Kamala Harris may get an opportunity to put 2 Supreme Court justices up there, and maybe we can do something about this. Okay, Rodney, go ahead, brother.
Exactly.
I'm fired up, man.
But bro, again, we need to get the audience focused on what's the real picture. It ain't about who she is or what she didn't do. It's what she stands for in terms of policies. They're going to move this country forward. That's what this is all about. And it's not, believe it or not, it's not a red-blue issue. It's a democracy versus an autocracy issue.
Yes, sir.
Because you've got never Trumpers, Republicans, diehard Republicans from the old school who are not supporting him. How is it possible? How many of the current administration, cabinet members have said that they're not going to support Kamala Harris? How many of them said they were not going to support Joe Biden when he was running for election and was on the ticket? But how many of the former president's cabinet members have said, we are not going to vote for him, do not vote for him? These are people who work for him and know him. And the last point I want to make before we segue is this. My brothers, they have to understand this. If your vote was not important, why are they working so hard to keep you from voting? To keep you from being able to use that right to vote if it wasn't important? Don't be bamboozled. Don't be led astray.
And we talked about it before we went live, is that we talked about how right here in Douglas County, that one of the elections came down to 10 votes. 10 votes. You're talking about some 4,000 people voted.
Hello.
10 votes. So yes, your vote do count. And like Rodney said, they wouldn't work so hard on it if they didn't think that it wasn't important. And one thing I'll say before we segue, since we're talking about voting, let me tell you something. They know we have the numbers, so
Yes.
they know they can't beat us that way. So let me tell you something. Vote early. As soon as early voting happens, souls to the polls, whatever, vote early. And before you even vote, make sure, I got it right here, make sure that tomorrow, tonight, whatever, that you go to my voter page here in Georgia, my voter
correct.
page, which is mvp.sos.ga.gov, You go there and you make sure that you haven't been purged off of the voter rolls. Do that this week, not later on, okay?
Amen.
Yes, sir. So, all right. Now what we're going to talk about, gentlemen, is we won't spend a whole bunch of time on this, but we just want to hit it up a little bit because we're not about making presumptions. We're about, on the Black Man's Roundtable, talking about what's really happening right now. But we just want to give a little insight and, on what we think, who should be, who would be a good VP for her. And Bobby, let's start with you, brother.
Okay. Well, I think I've narrowed it down to three. Roy Cooper, governor of North Carolina, Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, and Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. There's some intangibles, though, that have to be considered, and hopefully I won't interrupt your thoughts either, Rodney. If you take Cooper, from North Carolina, the lieutenant governor is Mark Robinson. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a black man with some very extremist views. That is the lieutenant governor. So if you take Cooper, then he elevates to that position. Josh Shapiro, and as we know, Pennsylvania is definitely a swing state. We have to have. If you take and promote him, Austin Davis is the lieutenant governor. Austin Davis is a black man. So he would be elevated to governor. However, Shapiro is very likable. He's got a strong record on him, very, very popular in the state. And he may very much be integral in swinging Pennsylvania. Mr. Kelly is a senator. He's an astronaut. He's a veteran, fighter pilot. He's married to Gabby Giffords, who was shot at a political event. Thankfully, she survived. But Mr. Kelly is very interesting as well, very likable also. And we know Arizona is another swing state. So those are the three that I've narrowed it down to. Cooper's very strong. Again, he could flip North Carolina if that's the case. But we know what the swing states are. Those three I've narrowed it down to, and just giving my reasons on those three. So I'll yield to Mr. Littles.
Absolutely.
We're real close, bro. 2 out of 3. We're real close.
Okay.
Real close.
Okay.
But before I segue into my top 3, Gavin Newsom has been mentioned several times. He's been out on the campaign trail fighting for Biden before he dropped out. But under the rules, you can't have 2 candidates to the top of the ticket from the same
state. That's correct. That's correct.
I agree that Roy Cooper from North Carolina, he's term limited. Although I agree the replacement may not be what we want, but North Carolina is an important state for us to look at getting. So he's number 3, not number 1. Josh Shapiro, I agree with that also. He won in 2022 by a landslide against an election denier. So he would be very, very instrumental. He's got a good track record and brings an important state to the table. My number 1 choice, though, is Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky. He won in a state that Trump won in 2020 by 25 points. He won in Kentucky. His dad was governor for 2 terms. He's strong in terms of the family name, etc. So I would make him my number 1. I'd make Josh Shapiro my number 2 and Cooper my number 3.
Okay. Well, I had the exact same 3 as Bobby. And I'm not, because every single thing that Bobby said and every single thing that you said about the ones that we have in common, then that leaves me with the Venn diagram in the middle. So here's the way. So I'm not even going to rehash and talk about, go into that kind of detail, because I'm going to just repeat myself, right? And repeat what you guys said. But but mine was Cooper, Kelly, and Shapiro. I am also leaning towards Cooper. I think that, I say that, but see, I wish it was a few more days, because I actually don't think, I think that because I believe that the youth and the black male vote is just surging for her. I just believe that she can just do what she wants to do. You know what I'm saying? And not have to worry about the political fallback of picking this person or that person or whatever. But if I had to go right now, it would be Cooper, because I think that he could definitely deliver North Carolina for her. And if she gets if they get North Carolina, this thing would be announced by 10:40 that night. It'll be announced by 10:45 if they get North Carolina. So okay. And the reason that I wanted to get that opinion, even though we're talking facts and what is happening, or what has happened, is because we want for you to be able to. I believe that you can actually make phone calls based on, if you like something I said or these 2 gentlemen said about who we think should be, the vice, her vice presidential pick. You know what? Even though Attorney General Eric Holder, I remember him, Attorney General Eric Holder, his law office his law firm is the one that is conducting the VP search.
Okay.
So for all them people, Kamala ain't black enough. Well, okay, there you go. All right, so Eric Holder is doing her VP search, so I have full faith and allegiance that his law firm is going to do the right thing. But guess what? Calling always make a difference. Hey, I would like for y'all to pick Kelly or Cooper or Shapiro. That's the only reason that I wanted to bring that up tonight. And so, and hopefully we gave you some insight, or you're getting insight from wherever you're getting it from, is make a phone call and tell them who you want. I think it makes a difference. Yeah, it's not an election, but you know.
I think all the candidates. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rodney.
No, I'm just go ahead, Bobby.
Full disclosure, Bobby and Rodney, for the audience, we did not compare notes before we came up with this.
No, sir, not at all.
We did not compare notes. No. Okay.
I think it's fair also to throw out. We see what's out there. We named 3 white males. Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Let's just be real. If we're trying, the goal is to win. All right. It's not to say that a black man can't be considered, a black female can't be considered, or a white female can't be considered. We're not saying that. All we're saying is the goal is to win. And right now she has been thrust up to the front. And that right there is kind of, throwing people off balance. So, those 3 gentlemen that we mentioned are all good candidates. And I do like Andy Bashir, Rodney, by the way. I do like Andy Bashir. However, I think some of these candidates, I think were good to keep in place where they are. Bashir is good. I do like Bashir. And obviously somebody's going to be left where they are. Even with Kelly, he doesn't have much governing experience.
Right.
He's been in the Senate, but he doesn't have much governing experience. And do we really want to take a chance with the Senate being such a razor-thin majority, even though the governor would appoint another, senator in his place? But there would be a special election coming down the road, and you just don't know, what that may be. So what the results may be on that. So you have to be careful. But they're all good candidates, that we've mentioned. But the reality of it is, we do think that in this instance, in this occurrence, that a white male will probably be the better ticket. Now, we'll look one day down the road, and we're going to see a Latino male. Not to say that there isn't one right now. Latino male, a female, an Asian. There's a host of other, quote unquote categories that we can say. But for right now, to get through this, I think those gentlemen we've mentioned are good candidates, and I would love to see them in place to do a debate against their current vice presidential nominee.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, and I would tell you this as well, Bobby. I don't want to hear this stuff about race doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I think that, but anyway, so it does matter, and your people that are in Maryland, I believe that's a ticket where
Westmore.
Westmore and his lieutenant governor, I think, is a black female, I think, and so yeah, it's like, well, we did it in Maryland. Well, there's 49 other states, and you got to understand something.
Right.
Okay, we do not vote as a country. We do not
No.
even vote as states. Okay,
No.
Right.
but there are people say, well, there's 50 elections going on, right? For 50 states. No, there is thousands of elections going on. However many these things are county by county by county. Okay, that's the way the United States work. And guess what? Every place is not Maryland, is what I'm saying. Okay,
Right.
and so we have to keep that in mind. It worked in Maryland, and it may have worked even in another state somewhere, as far as I know. I don't think so, but either way, we're an entire country, and we're voting like that. So, but Rodney, go ahead. I think you was going to say something.
No, I absolutely agree. You got to think of the demographics and the geography right now. There's only going to be a couple of swing states that are going to resolve this issue because we don't pick the president or vice president by popular vote. It's done through the electoral college system, which is a vestige of slavery and that era. And they should throw this whole electoral college crap out. Should not exist any longer. Just like they should change the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. And just because you go to jail does not mean you're a slave. We got to change and become current with where we should be at this point in history for this country.
In which we're gonna talk about as we move from this VP. We're going to talk about this VP discussion. We're going to talk about some of this Supreme Court rulings, and so Rodney, really, that was a very good segue because it's just like you brought up with the Electoral College. That is a vestige of slavery, right? And so, but the Democrats, I hope. And I'm going to there's going to be another roundtable on this, and I'm going to tell you something. It is, tonight I really, in a certain way, want to take the Democratic Party to task, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it on another roundtable, and it's not going to be to make the Democratic Party look good, look bad. It is time for the Democratic Party to understand and realize that who is their base, okay? Who they should be listening to and who they should maybe not be listening to. But like you said, Democrats had an opportunity, I believe, in the 70s. I'm not going to quote the year, for the Electoral College to get rid of it, okay, and to codify, just like the Civil Rights Act. Democrats had a lot of opportunities, and here is why. I'm telling the Democrats right now, here is why, especially black men kind of feel disenfranchised and kind of move away, kind of go to the shadows a lot of times. I've always said that black men and the youth were kind of, moving away. But they will not go and vote for Donald Trump. I can guarantee that. They're not going to change their affiliation. They're just not going to vote. And so, and it's because, when black men are looking at, we have all these opportunities to codify all of these different, whether it's Roe versus Wade, whether it's a Civil Rights Act, the Democrats pass up codifying these things, so we never have to worry about waiting, or getting that stripped away. And so what I just want to, but that'll be a whole nother thing. But I'm telling you, it's coming. It's coming. Yeah. It's coming, and we're gonna talk about these things because this election, this year right here, this presidential election. Let me tell you something. It could have got to the point where some Tea Party stuff started to happen. If things would not have happened, if Kamala Harris, not everybody who's behind her now was behind her. So, but I'm not going to go there because it'll take, it's a whole nother round table. So, so with that being said, gentlemen, I think, Rodney, that was a good segue into us talking about the Supreme Court rulings, and there's two of them, that I really want to focus on, because what I want you to understand, people, is that we're going to talk about this Project 2025. That's going to be the last thing. There's a reason, because everything we're talking about builds up to this Project 2025.
Right.
So right now, the Supreme Court, we know that there's a 6-3 conservative, liberal, Supreme Court or whatever, right? And so with 6 being, the majority, the conservatives. And so, and these two rulings, by the way, came right down to those voting lines, 6-3.
Right.
6-3.
Right.
And that was the first ruling we're going to talk about is Trump versus the U.S., which is, you probably heard about all this presidential immunity. All of this presidential immunity that they are giving the executive branch of the government, which is the president at the highest level, and basically saying he can do whatever he want to do, or she, as long as it's an official act. Now, they of course did this, with the presumption that Donald Trump was going to be the next president. Okay, so we're going to talk about that one, because guess what? In Project 2025, that's one of the first things that they said to do. Give the president, as who's the justice, guys? I can't think of not Elena Kagan. Sonia Sotomayor, when she wrote that they basically gave Donald Trump, by ruling this and giving him all of this, or giving the president all of this immunity, they basically made him a king. Well, I just want Joe Biden to know, well, you're a king right now. I mean, up until you get out of there. So I don't know if you might want to use some of this stuff that they thought was going to be for Trump. But anyway, and the other one was going to be the city of Grants versus Johnson, which is one that talks about basically, and it was 6-3 as well, to basically legalize imprisoning, basically making it, enforcing the general applicable laws regulating camping on public property does not constitute cruel and unusual punishment prohibited by the 8th Amendment. Basically what they're saying is that if you are so-called camping on public property, we know that means homelessness and unhoused people. So basically what it says is that it is no longer cruel and unusual punishment like it used to be, okay, to imprison those people. And what we know is that the 13th Amendment did not abolish slavery, okay, in the cases of punishment. So if you're in prison or in jail, you're a slave. All right, gentlemen, hit it up.
Let's talk about the immunity. It seems to me that the Supreme Court's role is to use precedent from prior cases, establish law on the books when they render a decision. Their job is not to legislate. Their job is not to create laws. So that really threw me completely when I even heard it, to be honest with you. Shouldn't even been heard. However, it seems to me that in past history, there are things that we don't know publicly that occurred because it's secret. It has to do with security, national security, decisions that were made that we might view as crimes against humanity if we knew that they were being done under the direction of the President of the United States and his administration, or her administration. Well, it hasn't been a her. So from that standpoint, it really didn't solve any problem. It didn't, and they also were very clear, from my understanding. I'm not a lawyer, to get that clear, but from my novice understanding, if you break a law that was not in pursuit of your formal duties or, quote, official act, then you're still subject, you're not above the law. So it wasn't as big a win as people thought. It was portrayed as a big win because the former president wanted all of his cases thrown out based upon that decision, because he said, hey, I got immunity, so all this stuff should be thrown out. My 34 convictions, my felonies, my all the stuff that y'all got me on should be thrown out. That's not the case. That was a PR move as far as I'm concerned, as it relates to absolute immunity. So again, it there's stuff that we don't see behind closed doors and sealed books that we'll never know about unless it's released at some point in history. And I won't be here probably when most of that stuff is released. If it is, it'll be heavily redacted. So I think it was a false maneuver, really just to give an argument for the former president, adjudicated convict, to try to use this as a way to throw out all of the convictions against it. That's my interpretation.
Mr. Fryer, what you think about it, sir?
You know, I knew something was up when a few months ago that the Supreme Court even took the case, because the lower courts had already unanimously decided, no, of course a president can't just be totally immune from things that he does. When they took the case, I was like, why are you taking the case? Precedent has shown that if the lower courts, especially when they decided unanimously on something, they left it alone. The Supreme Court said, no, we're going to go with their ruling and let it go. They took it on. Now, of course, being a conservative Supreme Court and having the numbers, that was my first thought, was like, here we go. And so now they pushed it back down to the lower courts with this question about being defining what are official acts of the presidency, right? They want the lower courts to decide that. Well, why didn't you decide it if you're going to do that? And see, we've grown up thinking that the Supreme Court was apolitical. That's what we thought. That was what we were told, to think about the Supreme Court. They were apolitical, and they were just going to make determinations based on the Constitution. And there's no way now that trust has been completely eroded because of Clarence Thomas and now with Judge Alito. Okay, so I don't look at the Supreme Court. And by the way, since we talk about codifying things, just to bring up some things that probably should be done, there should be term limits. I don't know of any job where you have something for life. That should be over. And I'm talking about the same thing for Congress too. Let's just think about this for a quick second. Joe Paterno, Eddie Robinson, Bobby Bowden. 3 of the greatest college football head coaches of all time, right? They all reached a certain point in their age to where it was like, hey, it's time to go. And we know what happened with Paterno, with the whole scandal and all of that. I'm just speaking of, they reached the point where they weren't really coaching the day-to-day coaching like they were in the past. So I don't know why, even on something such as a football coach, we don't have lifetime appointments. Okay, you just coach until you're done. I mean, it's ridiculous. And we have this in our government, and it's time for that to be eliminated. There need to be term limits. And we're finding out all these things again about Alito and Thomas, just to name the 2 that are top of mind. And I would question this too, to a lot of minority voters, black voters especially. When has a conservative Supreme Court been good for us? When? If you look at the past cases, whether it be Plessy versus Ferguson, a conservative Supreme Court does not help us. That's a fact. And I know I learned this over the past year from Justice Breyer, who is no longer on the bench. But he mentioned how conservatives, they do their determination on cases by something that's called originalism, where they try to go back and try to interpret what the Founding Fathers literally meant when they came up with certain things. The biggest problem with that is not only you trying to guess that, but the biggest problem with that is the Founding Fathers didn't have to deal with the internet, okay? So in a case such as child porn, how are the Founding Fathers going to actually put something, how are you going to know what they meant about child porn, all right? Or just anything on the internet that's not supposed to be there. A number of things. It's inflexible. It's inflexible thinking, right? So if you're going to go and guess what you thought the Founding Fathers meant. So the trust with the Supreme Court, and I'll end with this, has been totally eroded to the public. They don't have an ethics rules that they have to abide by, because we thought that they were going to be basically the ones that gave us guidance and direction based on their decisions. And in this particular case, all it's done is create confusion. You said again to take the case in the first place. Now you make this ridiculous decision where we've always been taught we don't have kings. Everybody's accountable for what their actions. Nobody is above the law. That's what's been preached to us since we learned it in grade school. Well, now you're suddenly now saying, oh yeah, well the president can do what he wants under quote unquote official acts. It's absurd.
You know, Bobby, since you originalist, right? My whole idea of what I know you're talking about internet and different things. Like you said, conservatives go by this. Conservatives, Supreme Court justices, go by this whole originalist idea, right? Of trying to go back and look at and do things exactly and interpret exactly what the founders were thinking. Well, if you're going to do that, my logic is this: if you want to be an originalist and you want to do things exactly, we were enslaved. Right.
Correct.
So if you're going to, so you feel what I'm going. So if you if you want to interpret anything to its original, what you believe the founders, and you call yourself an originalist, then the only way it will make sense is that if I was property. You feel me? And so that, we got the internet stuff, time changes. There are some documents. I'm sorry. There are some bylaws, if you will. We all definitely, the three of us know about bylaws, right? We know that some bylaws can stand the test of time for hundreds of thousands of years. You know why? Because when they were written, nobody was property.
Right.
So we have to really, as the Democratic Party, and again, that's a whole nother show, we have to, the way I look at a lot of the ways that we should be doing and changing and codifying things or whatever is going to be different than some of our non-melanated brothers and sisters who are Democrats, right? We have to look at it different. That it's changing. The party is changing. And we have to change with it. We cannot go with that logic. Democrats should be arguing down the fact that these, and promoting, like you just did, Bobby, that these conservatives, they are originalists, and then we should remind everybody about what, if you want to be an originalist, then you have to go back to that time period. And we as melanated African American people, we do not want to go back to that time period, and we don't want hardly any of the decisions that was made, that for us. But the last thing I'll say before we let Rodney go is that you also mentioned the that they wanted to, that nobody is kings. But before I say that, I want to say this: I hope that we are learning as black men, as black people, that, and as Democrats, the Democratic Party, I hope is learning. I'm not saying you're a Democrat, I don't know, because we don't care about that. We just talking about what's right. But at the end of the day, is that the Supreme Court, I hope people realize and how powerful the Supreme Court is. And yes, I wish that the Democratic Party 60 years ago had, Republicans been, we're going to talk about this when we talk about, the Heritage Foundation and how they've been working on stuff since the civil rights and trying to throw things back. But they understood that they're going to go through this non-elected body. That's the only federal body that we have of the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branch. The executive branch, that's the president. The legislative branch, that's the House of Representatives, and the Senate. Okay, they are elected. All that president and those other ones are elected. All 435 members of the 100 senators and 335 members, I think, if I got it correctly, of the House of Representatives. They are elected. The Supreme Court is the branch, the judicial branch of the federal government. They are not elected. Okay, and one thing I love to say is your term limits. Now when we look at those three branches at the federal level, the only branch that doesn't have term limits, that has term limits, is the executive branch. Ain't that something?
Yep.
The executive branch has a term limit, but nobody no representative, nobody in Congress, and lower or upper chamber, and nobody on the Supreme Court. And the last thing I was about to say was kings. You know, like you said, the Constitution got away from all that king stuff. But what I will say, because I heard this and I'm going to use it, and that is, you know what? They intended to seat their king.
Right.
What we need to do, they wanted to seat their king. How about we elect our queen? Go ahead, Rodney.
Ooh.
I just had to say it, man.
Well said, well said, well said. Well, did you want to go to the second case?
Sure. Yeah. Kick it off with
that's your
Okay.
lane. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I already hit it up a little bit, and that was the case of the city of Grant versus Johnson. I hope I got these cases right. And it is basically that legalized imprisoning homeless people. And so the reason I want to talk about these two before we got into Project 2025 is because these decisions, I think they were the 25th or 26th of June is when the Supreme Court decided on other ones, but decided on these cases. And what I want people to understand is there was something happen. Maybe you guys can help me remember. There was something happen the day before that distracted everybody. It was like June 26th, June 25th, I think is when these two, and that's when they slipped. It was on a Friday too. It's when these two, and they slipped those in there. So I say that to say.
Debate.
Yeah, that's what it was. The debate. That's what it was.
Right.
The debate was crazy, and everybody was talking about the debate on TV, and the Supreme Court was ruling 6-3 to these two things. So so it goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, y'all. Don't get distracted. Because you see, they'll do something, they'll have Donald Trump or whatever, somebody come out and do something crazy, and then while you're paying attention to that, they're wagging, the dog is wagging the tail is wagging the dog over here. So just keep that in mind. So, but the only thing I want to say about this one, guys, is that, look, think about the first one we talked about, where the president got all this immunity, basically a king, okay? And he, as long as in his official acts. What is not ever in an official act? Okay, I think I know, Bobby, you're a veteran. Rodney, I don't think you're a veteran, but we know, Bobby. What do they say in the military? Right, we're never off duty. So really, everything we do is an official act. Everything we do is an official act. You go in the city, you make a fool of yourself, you do something stupid, you're going to still be subjected to the Uniform Code of Military Justice because you're not off duty. Right.
That's right.
So everything is an official act. He's the commander in chief. So you look at that one. This is the Supreme Court now. They kickstarted Project 2025. We three gentlemen are going to talk about Project 2025. You've been hearing people talk about Project 2025 over the last couple of weeks, especially, even though they tried to distract us and stop us from talking about it. But the Supreme Court jump-started it the day after that.
That's right.
Yeah, the day after. But really, they jump-started it way back with Roe versus Wade and women's right to choose. But they've already started this thing, and that's why I wanted to kind of go into this. So anyway, if you are a prison, if you're homeless, okay. If you're homeless and you're talking about you're a Christian, and I thought the Bible somewhere talk about the least of these, and so well, some people are going to say some bad things about America, right? But if you take these homeless people, you put them in jail, you wonder why they're building so many prisons, and so many jails, because Project 2025 has been in effect for 50, 60 years. So that's what I really want to say about that. It is terrible. It is an absolute shame. It is going backwards. I think if you can imprison and lock up homeless people, the least of these, then it maybe explain why some people are still not ashamed of America's first and worst sin, which is enslaving human beings.
That's right. Yeah, and just to piggyback on your point real quick, if you put a homeless person in jail, they're going to stay there forever, because how are they going to bail themselves out? They don't have any money. So essentially, they become, as we've said before, under the 13th Amendment, you basically become
a legal slave.
Yeah.
So that slavery is not abolished in America. If you are in jail and you are in prison, you are an enslaved person. Point blank, period. The Constitution says it. So All right. Project.
Well, let me
Go
let
ahead.
me
Okay,
close
go
on
ahead,
that.
Rodney.
Let me close on that point because
Yes, sir.
that goes to the prison industrial complex, private prisons. What how is it possible that you can make a profit being a prison if there's no crime? So you have to either trump up folks on false charges to fill those beds, or my tax dollars is going to go to that private prison to pay for that empty bed because they're not making no money when it's empty. It's a sham.
And Rodney, it's right after like when they abolished slavery, 1865, right? And then
Yes,
you have
sir.
these laws to come in to say
took
that
the words
if
out
you're
my mouth, bro. Go ahead, Rodney.
Okay,
Yep.
you sure?
Yeah, no, go
Okay.
ahead. That's
And
what I
so
was
you
gonna
know,
say.
and they talk about how you had to always have a job, be at work, right?
Right,
And so
right.
it's okay. There were those shiftless, lazy, black people or whatever. And first of all, I'm going to make it impossible for you to get a job. I'm going to make it
Hello?
impossible. And what I want you to know, when they say "Make America Great Again," talking about rolling this stuff back, this is a black man's roundtable. We're going to get real, right? So,
Yes, sir.
so the bottom line is, just like back right after slavery was so-called abolished, except for in cases of punishment. So it's like, okay, now you have to. If you don't have a job, if you hanging in the street, you don't have a job, we're going to put you in jail, basically put you back in slavery, okay?
Yep.
But we're going to make it impossible for you to get a job, right? So it's the
Right.
same way now, okay? Rewind 40 years or whatever. Fast forward. Now you have, I'm going to make it impossible for you to pay rent and to have a roof over your head, all right? And now I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put you back in slavery. Okay, so it's no different, guys. Is what I'm saying, and there's two things that they have built. They have been building, but both of these things both these things has been, well, one has been going up because you can't afford rent hardly anywhere you go now, right? Again, making you homeless, right? Is jails and prisons, private, like Rodney alluded to, but also crime has fallen significantly in America. Crime has really, well, for one thing, because of Joe Biden, the doggone unemployment rate is low as I don't know what. When people are working, they are less likely to commit crimes. If you want most crimes are committed between young men or whatever, between the ages of 13 and 25 or whatever. Don't quote me on this stuff. I tell you what, give every one of those young men, especially the ones who are of working age, give them a good paying job, making $60,000 or whatever a year, and see how much crime they commit. So you can just take crime right off the radar. But here's the thing: what I'm saying to you is that jails and prison, the police forces, crime has dropped significantly. But however, there's almost 19,000 individual police police departments and sheriff's departments and all of that stuff in the United States, and all of them operate individually. Okay,
Right.
but they have consistently funded them, and I'm not saying defund the police, giving them a whole bunch of money when crime is dropping. Okay, I can work with that. Whatever. Maybe you sending a lot of money to training or whatever. But what about what about increasing the militarization of the police forces? So, and I say that to say this: if crime is dropping, but they're militarizing them more, well, who do you think they're militarizing them for? And that's all I'm gonna say about that. You do the speculation.
Yeah.
I hear you, Rodney.
I don't know, man. But right now, I guess that was what we wanted to end that with.
Yeah, bro.
Okay.
Criminalization.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But yeah, it all feeds into what we're about to talk about, and I really want for these guys to do much of the talking. If you don't mind, I'll definitely chime in when necessary on this Project 2025. And right now, I know you really want to talk about, and Rodney, you're going to really hone down the Agenda 47, which is Trump's plan or whatever. And we're going to mirror these things so you can see these things are mirror images of each other. So when Trump say he don't know anything about Project 2025, you also don't know, you've never seen Stormy Daniels, but anyway, Rodney or whoever want to.
You're rough, bro. You're rough.
Hey man, I'm tired, man. Somebody kick it off. Somebody kick it off.
Bobby, when Rodney called me and said, dude, we gotta do a show tomorrow, and I know you're up on this. And I'm like, bro, I'm gonna burn the midnight oil, man, and make sure I'm up on it. So I
Absolutely.
did some homework.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But you guys, we do homework on this thing. It ain't no
That's right,
black
bro.
man's
That's
round.
right.
We bring
I
it. We bring
respect
it.
your audience, my brother. I respect your audience.
And they respect you, brother.
So here's the deal. Agenda 47, which is the 47th president-to-be that they expected, actually equals Project 2025.
Yep.
They're the same.
Yep.
The overall impact of Project 2025 on predominantly black communities could be significant, potentially exacerbating existing disparities in economic opportunity, education, healthcare, housing, and what we were just talking about, criminal justice. The architects of Project 2025 started 60 years ago and forecasted that they would be in a political power one day for the Supreme Court, the United States Senate, and the presidency in order to implement this shift to further cause inequality. Inequality. Well, for who? For us.
Right.
They know that these measures will create an apartheid state in America, where descendants of slave owners and the KKK would rule as a minority regime. If you look at the popular vote over the last 4, 5, 6 presidents, the Republicans that won the White House won by the Electoral College, not by the popular vote.
That's correct.
That's a minority regime.
That's correct.
Please note, Project 2025 is about continuing racial inequality in traditional 5 core areas in the United States that black people have fought for their entire lives to improve. The 5 core areas are economics, healthcare, education, the judicial system, and housing, which we were just talking about, being homeless. The Project 2025 is an initiative proposed by the Heritage Foundation, as we talked about, with the goal of transforming the federal government and policy landscape if conservatives win the 2024 U.S. presidential election. They've been preparing for this. The intent of these MAGA oppressors want to create an apartheid system, as I said, in this country. Now, there's 10 chapters. I'm going to break down the 10 chapters very quickly in a couple of sentences for each chapter to give you an idea. A 1 or 2 sentence summary, and then what that impact would be. Let's ride. Chapter 1, streamlining government. Proposes to reduce the size of the federal government, eliminating certain agencies, and delegating more power to the states and private entities. What's the impact? Marginalized communities might face reduced access to federal programs and protections, leading to disparities in services such as health care, education, and housing, the fundamentals of rights that we're supposed to have in this country as citizens. Chapter 2, economic growth and deregulation, focuses on cutting regulations, lowering taxes for the rich, and promoting free market policies to stimulate economic growth. Supply side economics. The impact. While economic growth might benefit some, deregulation could lead to environmental degradation, reduced workplace protections, disproportionately affecting low-income and marginalized groups. When I say marginalized groups, I'm talking about people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And poor white people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And who's impacted the most of those groups? Black folks.
Yes, sir.
Chapter 3, education reform. It advocates for school choice, charter schools, and reducing federal involvement in education. Reducing federal involvement in education. What's the impact? School choice might widen educational inequality and disparities, as marginalized communities may lack access to high-quality alternatives, exacerbating existing disparities in education. Everybody can't go to private school.
That's right.
Chapter 4, healthcare. They propose to repealing the Affordable Care Act and promoting market-based healthcare solutions, which has been a failure In a country like this should not be the case. What's the impact? Repealing the ACA could lead to millions losing their health insurance, disproportionately impacting low-income and marginalized communities who benefit from the ACA provisions. What they're not telling you is there's more white folks that are in this marginalized low-income area that benefit from the ACA than we do.
And that's even that's even per capita, by the way, not just numbers, not just raw numbers.
That's correct, per capita. Chapter 5. Oh, they love to talk about this one. Immigration. It emphasizes stricter immigration policies, border security, and reducing the number of immigrants allowed into the country. What's the impact? Harsher immigration policies could negatively affect immigrant communities that are here now, leading to increased fear, family separations, and limited access to social services. That's inhumane. You're supposed to be a Christian nationalist? This ain't what Jesus talked about. Chapter 6, Energy and the Environment, focuses on energy independence, reducing environmental regulations, and promoting fossil fuel use. As you heard, the former president met with the oil magnates and asked for $1 billion. He would, one, reduce their taxes and reduce regulation on fossil fuel use. What's the impact? Environmental deregulation and increased fossil fuel use can lead to high pollution levels, disproportionately affecting, again, marginalized communities who often live in areas more vulnerable to environmental hazards. You know about that, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Ask Flint.
Next chapter. Chapter 7, Law and Order. Advocates for stronger law enforcement, harsher penalties for crimes, and reducing federal oversight of local police. What's the impact? Increased law enforcement measures may lead to over-policing and higher incarceration rates in marginalized communities, exacerbating issues of systemic racism and injustice. Law and order. But yet they're supporting the 34 felony convicted individual for president. Chapter 8, Social Programs, proposes reducing federal welfare programs and promoting private and faith-based charity. What's the impact? Cutting federal welfare programs could leave marginalized communities without essential support services, increasing poverty and inequality, which is the basis for 2025, promoting inequality. Chapter 9, Judicial and Legal Reform. We talked about this a minute ago. Focuses on appointing conservative judges and reducing the power of federal courts. The impact. Conservative judicial appointments could lead to rulings that roll back civil rights, protections, and social progress, negatively affecting marginalized communities' legal rights and protections. Black folks. The last chapter is chapter 10. This one has an international impact. National security and defense. It emphasizes a strong national defense, increasing military spending, and reducing foreign aid. The impact. Increased military spending might come at the expense of social programs, which are crucial to who? Marginalized communities. And reducing foreign aid could affect global marginalized populations relying on U.S. assistance. Ukraine. Overall, Project 2025 proposed changes aim to reshape the federal policies and reduce government intervention. While proponents argue these measures could lead to greater economic freedom and efficiencies, critics warn that they could deepen social inequities, particularly affecting marginalized communities who rely heavily on programs and protections that the federal government provides. The Heritage Foundation and its partners aim to influence U.S. federal government policies if Republicans win the presidency in 2024. That's the overview, my brothers.
Great breakdown.
All right. Great breakdown.
Great breakdown. How
Bobby,
come behind that, right?
You know what I want to do? I'm gonna tell you what I want to do, right? Before I do this, what I want to do is I want to take a look at, I got this sheet of paper here, The aspect, and much as it's going to be exactly, and it's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 10. I want to talk about the aspects when we're talking about Agenda 47 and Project 2025 and the similarity of those aspects. Because I know that Bobby is deep into how they are so similar. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about an aspect, and then I'm going to talk about the similarity. And a lot of them are going to cross over with what Rodney did. But before I do that, I do want to say that, first of all, like I said, I want to give you guys some homework, okay? So my next thing I want you to Google or research or whatever, Rodney said it when he was talking, Christian nationalists.
Oh, yeah.
Look that up. Look that up. See what it is. So when you hear these so-called MAGA people say that I am a Christian nationalist, know what that means. Rodney brought it up. I want you to go and I want you to Google that or however you get your information, but look it up, okay? And then before I do this, I want to say this. You'll also hear them say, you'll also hear a lot of conservatives, Republicans, let me just put it that way, but since we're using party, you'll hear a lot of Republicans say, tell black people. So listen up, brothers. Listen up, black men. We coming out, hey, I'm telling you, we coming out of these shadows. We about to get it done. They'll say, get off the Democrat plantation. Get off the Democrat plantation. That's what they say specifically to the black man, right? That is so, I'm going to use one of Donald Trump's words. That's so nasty. That a country with its greatest sin is to enslave people, and you want to, as a white person, because 99.9%, well, no, they make sure that they get, I'm not going to name these folks. Y'all know who they are, TS, and all these folks like that. Those just some initials, okay? They get these people, they especially get a black man to really say that, get off the Democrat plantation, like he done got off the plantation. Well, here's the thing. They say in plantation, that's just nasty. Why? I mean, why? But at any rate, you see with this Project 2025, you see who they really trying to put back on the plantation with just everything Rodney gave you. Every single thing is to put you right back. And if you think it can't happen overnight, you better look around the world and see what's going on, even in Israel, when you got 2 million people or whatever living on the Gaza Strip this long, about as long as, I don't know, some streets and, long as a country road and about as wide as one. You got 2 million people stuffed in there. And, it's very easy. It's not as hard as you think that you'll look up in 6 months and you won't recognize America. So all these people talking, I ain't going back on no plantation. Okay. Well, you just see what Project 2025 will do to you. This is called institutional racism. They ain't worried about coming up to you calling you the N-word. They'll look right in your face and tell you you're the best thing since sliced bread. But at the same time, they doing all these 10 things that Rodney just said. So here go my 10 things, these aspects. Federal workforce and how there's similarity. When I talk about similarity, I'm talking about Agenda 47 and Project 2025. Federal workforce. Here's the similarities. Both plans aim to reclassify federal employees to make it easier to fire those involved in political decisions. Okay? And also increase executive power. The next one is executive power. Here's how both of those plans are similar. Both plans seek to increase executive power and centralize control and power within the White House. Immigration. Here's how they're both the same. 47 and 25. Both plans emphasize strict immigration enforcement and large-scale deportations, and increased federal interaction and executive power. And then education. Both plans advocate for dismantling the Department of Education and increasing school choice options. And deregulation. Both plans focus on deregulating industries and reducing environmental protections, and which also through increased executive power. Then civil rights. And I say again, civil rights. Both plans aim to reduce the civil rights protections of LGBTQ plus individuals. Now, one thing I will say about both of these, right? They do target LGBTQ plus more than anybody, right? They want to go after the LGBTQ plus civil rights through, the Agenda 47 and Project 2025, they want to go after black people's civil rights through the Supreme Court. That's the difference. So, so don't think if you look over there and see civil rights, you're like, well, there's LGBTQ. No. They're going to get you through the civil. They're going to get you so that way it can never be codified or anything. They're going to get us that way. Okay, the Supreme Court way. You see, it's already happening. Healthcare. Both plans support the privatization of healthcare and reducing government-provided healthcare services. Abortion. Both plans seek to restrict access to abortion and contraception. Trade and tariffs. Both plans prioritize protecting American industries through tariffs and trade policies. Significant government intervention in the market, contrary to free market principles. And last, law enforcement. Both plans emphasize restructuring law enforcement agencies to align with executive priorities. Not to align with serve and protect. Okay? Not align with serve and protect. I tell people all the time, stop saying protect and serve. They've gaslighted you with that even, right? Yeah, I'm a person that words matter. Okay? Like I said, there's almost 19,000 police departments in the United States, okay? And every single one of them motto is to serve and protect. The word serve come first. But they've gaslighted all of us, not me, but they've gaslighted so many of us to say protect and serve. No, your first job is to serve and then protect. But guess what? That won't even be your job under 47, under Agenda 47 or Project 2025. It will be whatever the executive priorities say that it is. Who's the executives? Who's the executive branch? Well, at the federal level, it is the president. It's what he says with all those federal agencies, okay? FBI, CIA, whatever, right? All those law enforcement federal agencies. At the state level, it's your state police, state troopers, and that kind of thing. At your city level and your county levels and all those stuff, county usually sheriff, your executive, your county uses your sheriff, and your police, the chief of police is usually your cities. So it's that mayor, guiding that police chief and telling him, here's what your priorities are. Not to serve and protect, but it's this now. And the same way, maybe even with your county sheriff, it may be the chair of your county commission seat, okay, which is the only executive that's on that board usually. So yeah. So we didn't want to give you some kind of dissertation or some kind of big thesis or whatever on this. We want to just get down and dirty. You see the similarities. Rodney showed you exactly the impact. You see that there is not a dime's worth of difference in between those two things. So when you say Agenda 47, it is no different from saying Project 2025 and vice versa. Yeah. Bobby, is there?
Rodney, I want to add a few things that I didn't hear necessarily. And it's a lot, obviously, right? Just a few things, just real quick. If you are a veteran, okay, as a veteran, they're talking about cutting veteran benefits. Overtime, eliminating overtime pay. The FDIC may be eliminated from covering your funds in the bank. That's another thing. They want to eliminate the Department of Education. They definitely don't want Black history taught in schools. Eliminating DEI programs, stop and frisk, making that basically the law of the land. There's a public school requirement to test for military service, but if you are in a private school, you are exempt. There's so much stuff that's packaged in there. It's so ridiculous that, again, they're going to try to somehow distance themselves from it by saying, no, it's Agenda 47 is the official platform. But they're merged together. They're basically the same bride, okay? So they're going to try that, and I've already had somebody on social media try that with me. And I was like, you think I wasn't ready for this trick you're trying to put on me and say that, oh, no, they don't have anything to do with Project 2025 nonsense. And let me make one statement about the border. He's demonized everyone as an invader. Everyone that comes in here, they keep repeating the same thing. Oh, they're letting people out of prisons. They're letting people out of mental institutions. Yada, 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 yada. It's the worst of the worst, right? When we know that's not true. Now, I'm not telling you we can't do better at the border. Of course, there are things that can be done better at the border. By the way, we had a bipartisan bill that was agreed
Well,
upon.
tell him, Bob.
You know what I'm saying? But we know that he made sure that they didn't sign it so that he can try to ram this down everybody's throat on his platform for hopefully to get reelected. But let me say this, and I've said this numerous times whenever I hear people hype up the border, and this is something I would ask any Republican to tell me. I want to ask you, are migrants the ones that's coming over here doing mass shootings that we've seen? Okay? We know the areas that have been targeted. We know the public places that has happened. They're not migrants, including what happened approximately 10 days ago up in Pennsylvania. He wasn't a migrant either. Okay? So the biggest threat that we have are not migrants or people that come over here. It's actually American-born citizens. And I will say that to them every time. When you go back and look at these incidents that's occurring, it's not migrants that's coming over here doing that stuff. It's American-born citizens. So face that fact, okay, before you start spreading propaganda about people coming over here and always say, oh, they come out of mental institutions. Look, all of a sudden now you care about who had a gun. Any other time, you don't care. You don't want any restrictions. No matter if it's as simple as a background check. You don't care. But now, again, now something's happened and you want to question who was the purchaser. What was his background? I thought you didn't care. And you made that same point when it came to Hunter Biden. Oh, he should be thrown in jail. I thought y'all didn't care who owned the gun.
Yep.
We know he lied on his application. Didn't hurt anybody. Could have, but he didn't. Right? But I thought y'all don't care. I thought it was wide open for who. We know here in the state of Georgia, you don't even have to have a permit anymore.
That's right.
Unless it's concealed.
Yep.
So I know that's a little off topic, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
No. Man, look, there's
right
nothing.
On point,
It's right on point. You know, every time you talk, you end up tweaking me. See, every time you talk, Bobby, then I come up, then I end up coming behind you screaming and hollering. But what I'm going to say, you already tweaked me just by talking. And I'll tell you this though, you know, like I said, he didn't need this because he can pardon anybody he wants to, and that is the president of the United States. But you know, now that he's pretty much lamed up, President Biden, because he's not going to run for a second term, and so I really hope. I don't know if he was going to pardon Hunter Biden since you brought him up, because he may look for a second term and win that. It's like, I don't want to look. Hey, man, what's stopping you now, bro? That's your son, man. Right. I mean, I'm just saying. Just saying. So everybody want to talk about those few people that Donald Trump pardoned at the very end of his, the presidents do it at the very end. They'll pardon, some folks. And he pardoned a couple of high profile black people, but go back. Here's some more homework. Google how many people did Donald Trump how many people did Donald Trump have executed at the end of his term. You'll be absolutely surprised. So don't let them gaslight you. And the other thing that you talked about, Bobby, that kind of tweaked me was this whole thing with violence, right? And they want to, again, gaslight you, make you believe that Chicago is the most violent state in the union is Alaska. And then some of I think Illinois is in the top 10, but it's like number 9 or something. But they just gaslighting people, and they want you to believe this stuff. Alaska, most of the poorest, of course, and the most violent, because poverty equals violence.
That's right.
Are red states that are primarily white states. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them gaslight you. And the other thing you said, Bobby, that tweaked me was these migrant jobs. Here's what I'm gonna tell you, brothers, because that's how they go after, especially black men, and make you disenfranchised.
You're taking black jobs.
Taking black jobs, okay? Thank you, Rodney. Let me tell you something, okay? Let me just say this to you. if you play one person against the other and you just not and neither one of the people are really getting anything, so it's like, hey,
Right.
they taking your black jobs, they taking
Right.
your jobs, they taking your jobs.
Right.
They've been saying that, and immigration is a problem. They taking your jobs. Okay,
Right.
well, so I'm gonna just give you I'm a math person, I'm a numbers person, but if unemployment is at its lowest for black people right now, some 3 or 4%, right? And and crossing the border and immigration is they flooding the borders. They flooding the borders. Well, why isn't black unemployment much higher, right? Because they should be taking those jobs, right?
Correct.
Here is the deal. Then also explain this. Immigration was not a problem in 1975. Immigration was not an issue. So if they're trying to convince you, brother, that these immigrants are taking your job, then say to them, well, why the hell I didn't have no job in 1975 when unemployment was way high? It wasn't no immigrants around to take my job.
Right.
So don't
Right.
let them, it's simple. Immigrants are not taking anything from you. That is just their way of gaslighting you and making you go against the other one. And you know what? I know that it is working on some brothers, but brothers, you cannot get out of what I just said or whatever. Unemployment is low. Immigration rate is supposed to be so high. They come across the borders like never before, or like Donald Trump said, that no time in the whole existence of the universe they coming across the borders. But yet unemployment is very low. And then explain why was unemployment so high for black people? Why has unemployment always doubled the rate
Correct.
of white people, even when immigration wasn't a problem?
Right.
If white people have got a 5% unemployment rate, black people, you can bet, you don't even have to look at the numbers, black people got 10%.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. I would hate if right now I think unemployment is like I said, what is it, guys? Like 4% or something?
It's 4%.
Something like it's very low.
4.1,
4%. You better believe it's 2% for white people. Here's what I'm gonna tell you right here. Here's what to scare you. Forget about the immigration thing. Based on what I told you, simple math. If black people unemployment rate always double that of white people. If you don't believe me, go back and look at the Department of Labor, look at the Department of Statistics, and you will see every single time is that way. If it's 10%, it's 20%. Well, here's my biggest fear. White unemployment hitting 50%. That's my fear. Because if it hit 50%, where we at, guys?
We're done.
We at
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
We ain't working nowhere.
Yep.
Nope.
So, so don't believe that, black men. That is gaslighting, and it's working on black men. I know it is, because y'all know them in these streets and these suites. I know that it is working. That thing is working. Cut it out. Stop believing it.
And also, it's insulting too, because it's basically saying all of the low-paying jobs that most people don't want. It's insinuating those are the black jobs that they're taking, and the Hispanic jobs that they're taking, the Latino jobs. That's the inference that they're making when they make those kind of statements. About the migrants coming in and taking over jobs. And also what it does too is it gets you mentally thinking that you have no skills to operate a business on your own. You're always dependent on somebody else. So those are the type of things that I pay attention to. That false propaganda, and it's sad when you see people buy into that. And again, I mentioned that before about the migrants and all of the violence that we've seen. It's not migrants. It's not migrants.
And you know what, Bobby? If black jobs was what Donald Trump say they are, and what the Heritage Foundation and all these other so-called think tanks believe, if immigrants were coming and taking black jobs, like for real, those low skill, low wage jobs, Project 2025 and Agenda 47 wouldn't even exist.
Exactly.
Because they would be fat cats, or even if it don't exist, or it has worked in its fullness. So that's if you look at this stuff, none of this stuff makes sense. None of it matches up because it's crazy. It's lunacy. And and they just put a bunch of stuff out there and hope it sticks. So, gentlemen, I think one of the things we can do is we can take this moment. I want to give you guys an opportunity to look in your camera and just as a black man, okay? Because I know that they have we say every single presidential election that this is the most important election of our life. And I believe that, the whole while we were saying that, the whole while people say that every 4 years, this is the most important election of our life, of our lifetime, and that. Well, what happens is that it starts to become numb to you. It's like, okay, whatever. They're going to say it's the most important. And I think for the last 60 years, the Heritage Foundation and, some of these conservative Republicans, started out those Dixiecrats and all that stuff. I think that they laugh every 4 years like, that's what they think. Let them keep saying that, so that way it becomes numb to their constituents, to their, party, and it becomes numb because they knew that around, I believe they predicted it down to a science, because remember, they did all this other stuff first to make housing unaffordable, to take, and by the way, I will say that today or yesterday, or not yesterday, last week, late last week or whatever, Georgia, the state of Georgia, and you kind of made me think about this too, Bobby, the state of Georgia basically outlawed the
Black History
teaching AP, the superintendent, he ended AP African American Studies just like they did in Florida. But see, they do this stuff, so that's gone. Like your kid, that's it. No African American Studies. So you start to take those things away. You dumb them down. You make them poor. You take them, and then then you really start to do your work. So we have to understand exactly that this was a long thing. And so now, this year, I believe they predicted that, right around that, I think they thought it was going to be that when Donald Trump got elected that year, and that's why, they didn't want him out of there because the job wasn't done. And then we know what happened January 6th, right? Because you don't do that kind of stuff unless you just really thought something was going to be the way that it was and it didn't turn out that way. I believe that they thought that this whole heritage plan, this whole Project 2025 was actually, they just call it that now. It hasn't always been called that.
Right.
And so they it was, and I think that Donald Trump election was supposed to get them completely where they were supposed to be. Okay? So, yes, they've been laughing at us saying this is the most important election of your lifetime and that kind of stuff. And it's numb to a lot of people. But what I'm telling you, I've been voting ever since I've been able to vote. And what I can tell you, and I'm sure these guys has the same thing, I'm sure they're going to echo exactly what I'm saying, which is that this is the most important election of your lifetime, because if you do not, especially the people who are going to be hurt by this the most are people, melanated people, especially people of African descent. You will be put back on that plantation if they have anything to do with it, or at least, if not, they don't want to go back that far because they're too embarrassed about what the world would think about that, then you at least better be ready to go back to Jim Crow and get off that sidewalk. And I promise you're going to do it too. So, but guys, I would love for you to, if you can start out with I want you to do a summary. Just look as a black man. That's black men, that's black youth, and I'm so glad they energized. They're listening right now, and I want for you to summarize whatever you think you need to summarize. We'll start with Bobby, and just summarize. Look into the camera. Tell the people on a political note, and even on a family note or whatever, just let them hear from a brother. Let them hear from a black man. And then when we talk about hearing from a black man, we talking about every single body, not just black people or whatever, not just Democrats, not for Republicans. You better listen, because I'm going to tell you something. We are the most, and I'm probably taking away from what I was going to summarize it with. We, in my opinion, we are the most savvy voters in the United States of America, black people. And I'm going to tell you why in my summary that we're so savvy. But Bobby, kick it off, brother.
So thank you for that, by the way. Let me give you a couple points. Number one, in the 2020 election, my oldest son, it was his first time being eligible to vote. My wife and I, we take voting very seriously. So we took him, we did early voting, and afterwards, he got a great reception while you're there. They make you feel great and all that kind of stuff. And I share this because afterward, we got in the car and the voting was done. I said, "How do you feel, son?" He said, "I feel great." And I said, now imagine someone trying to take that from you. I remember saying that specifically to him. I said, imagine how you would feel if someone tried to take that from you. He said, it would make you angry, wouldn't it? He said, yeah. Now, this was long before we knew about what 45 tried to do. And I said, he literally tried to take my son's vote away. He literally tried to snatch his vote, my wife's vote, my family's vote. He literally tried to snatch it away. And so this whole thing, and don't even get me started, I don't even think we should have election day at the way things were going. I think election day should be moved past the adjudication of his cases, but that's another topic for another day. But I'll never forget that feeling once I found out what he tried to do in the state of Georgia. That angered me. The other thing is a couple years ago, we took a trip to Memphis, Tennessee. I wanted my sons to see the Lorraine Hotel, what happened. And we took a little ride from there after we did that the next day to Little Rock, Arkansas. We went to Little Rock Central. There at Little Rock Central, we know that was where the Little Rock Nine were going to school. Desegregation just happened. And there's a little cultural center near the school. We actually went to the school because it's still there. It's still a functioning high school. It's $1 million school. We went there and we went by the cultural center. So we watched a little history throughout the center. What I didn't know, and this relates to this, what I didn't know and totally forgot about was when Brown versus Board of Education had been decided, led by, of course, Thurgood Marshall. When the Supreme Court made their decision, which basically desegregated schools, the only thing they didn't do was say when it had to start. So it was a victory, but when did it have to start was the question. It wasn't laid out. So in Arkansas, Governor Backus, during that time, I thought that he called in the National Guard to allow them to go to school. But what he had said was, nope, states' rights, we're not going to do it. Not going to do it. Called in the National Guard to prevent those kids from going to school. I had it wrong. I thought it was there. I thought he called them to allow them to go. No, they were called in specifically to block them from going to school. President Eisenhower told him, nope, the Supreme Court has made a decision and you're going to abide by it. So what he did was called in the 82nd Airborne to come in, and that's who you saw finally be there to allow those kids to go to school. So imagine what they went through, and I've already seen what they did go through in the first couple of days of trying. And by the way, these were 9 outstanding students. When they finally got in, the students checked out. The white kids checked out. And what they wrote on that was, the reason for checking out was, they wrote nigger. So you got the students coming into class and they're having to deal with that. Even when they graduated, they got letters from their fellow classmates not wanting them to come because they're saying they're going to ruin the graduation, there's going to be chaos, etc. I bring that up because we don't realize the importance of these Supreme Court decisions, how important that was. And you have to do your history. You have to take the time sometimes, just go physically, go somewhere. Mr. Little's, last year we went to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I went to Greenwood. I wanted to purposely go specifically to see that. And the things that I learned there, because I know about, we've heard about Black Wall Street, I wanted to physically go there. I wanted to see it. And so when you hear about these Black history being eliminated, when you hear about people not knowing how far we've come and how far we still got to go. And so when you see these things like Project 2025 want to take us back to a time that basically we're gonna try to eliminate everything, all the progress that's happened in the 20th century. Everything Dr. King marched for, all the civil rights leaders, Medgar Evers lost his life, from Malcolm X, all the names, and by the way, a lot of the names that we didn't learn in grade school, that you have to learn and find out for yourself afterward. So I will not, to end what my little spiel is, I will not disrespect those that have given their lives, people like John Lewis, who took a brick to the head, just for these liberties to be rightfully given to us, and not educate myself on the issues. I will not do that. So a lot of times when I see low information people commenting, I don't understand it because the information is literally right at your fingertips. If you got a computer, if you got a cell phone, there's no reason you can't do your own research and research this stuff for yourself. There's no excuse for it. So that's just my 2 cents on the importance of voting, why it matters, and as we've mentioned before, the Supreme Court. It's a game of chess, not checkers, and we got to wake up and realize that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well
Mr.
said, my
Littles.
brother, well said. Well, thank you so much to the Black Man's Roundtable and Brother Butler for bringing us together around this and bringing other brothers around on important issues that affect our people. Maya Angelou said, when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. And we have to understand as a people, based upon the percentage of our population in this country, and based upon the level of attack on, as my brother said, folks who are low information, low income, working class, poor working class people, that they actually are the majority of the voters if they were registered and participated in the process to protect their interests. We have to be looking at voting for policies of the party that best represents the values that you want to see for yourself and your descendants. And that's what you have to value. You have to take the personalities and the faces out of it, and you have to get down to the brass tacks. As Brother Butler said, do your homework. What are the policies that are being proposed that are going to affect your life, your community, your country? That's what this election is about. It's not about personalities, although there's a lot of that in the game. But the issue is, what are they talking about on how they're going to rule and govern? That's what we have to listen to. And we have to be united. We as a black people in this country control more wealth than a lot of countries combined as a people in this country. We have to learn from our ancestors how to leverage and use the dollars that we have and how we consume them to make an impact on the economy and on our lives. We have to spend our money amongst ourselves. We have to work together with folks who have similar and common interests as we do. And we have to understand the game that's being played on us, because the divide and conquer strategy is working. It hasn't changed. We are divided amongst ourselves. We're pitted against one another. But it's not about party. It's about policy. We have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. We only have permanent interests. And when we realize that, we're going to advance in this country, but we cannot do it alone. And I believe that this coming election, with Madam Vice President, if she gets nominated to be on the ticket for President of the United States, is the best choice we have as a people, not just black people, as Americans, to preserve our democracy and save this union. They talk about a civil war if the former president loses. I've been in a civil war since I've been born.
No, that's right.
It's been an attack on my rights since I've been born. And at my age, I should not be worrying about my grandchildren and my future great-grandchildren living in a country that we fought so hard to just have a modicum of rights and dignity as human beings in this nation have to fight all over again. It hasn't been that long. It hasn't been that long. And they're trying to take it all away. And we talked about the courts. When the courts eliminated the pre-clearance section of the Voting Rights Act, which kept the southern states in check, they couldn't change election laws without going through the Justice Department and making sure that the changes were not going to be detrimental to black people in this country and in the southern states, once they took that away, then you saw state laws after state law after state law, including in this state, taking away our ability to practice our constitutional right as a citizen to participate in the political process and determine our futures and who we wanted to represent us. We're at a very serious crossroads, my brothers, my sisters, my country. And I implore you, I beg you, think twice before you cast your vote. And as Brother Butler said, and I'm going to close on this point, don't just check today on your voter status, because they're purging voters all over this country in MAGA states. They're purging you. So you got to check your registration every so often, and definitely 2 to 3, 4 weeks before early voting starts, before the deadline, to update your registration. If you move, update it. If you get married and change your last name, update it. And if you had a criminal offense and you served your time, verify the state laws that permit you to reactivate your constitutional right to vote. Please, this is very important. Again, I thank the Black Man's Roundtable, my fellow contributor, our host for tonight. This is a serious discussion, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the future of our country is in your hands. Amen.
Appreciate you, brother. You are absolutely right. In Georgia is a battleground state, and you did that. You made Georgia a battleground state, and so therefore, it is one of the states that they are absolutely purging you off of the rolls. If you have not voted if you miss more than one of the last elections, and you say, well, I don't know what the last 2 elections were. Well, if you don't know what the last 2 elections were, then you follow these instructions right here. You go on my voter page, and then if you've ever registered to vote, you go onto my voter page, and then which is mvp.sos.ga.gov, and you type in your last name and your county, I believe, and your birthday or something like that, and boom, there you go. It tells you exactly what your status is. You better do that this week, because they are purging you. And then, so it's a battleground state. It's a battleground state. You don't know what that means? That means that it's very needed by both parties in order to win the Electoral College and to get to that 270 electoral votes, okay? I first want to say again, I'm going to thank you two guys at the end once again, but I just want to thank, my 2 contributors, and like I said, they are contributors. If you don't call that contribution what they did tonight, then I don't know what's the definition of contribution. And you're going to see these brothers. There are other contributions for the Black Man's Roundtable, but they are contributors in different areas. But these are 2 on political issues. These are 2 of about 4 guys that I know that I can go to. Their schedules are flexible enough for me to say, hey man, I need you guys right now. We need to get out there and put the word out. So before I say my closing, is I want to say, yes, I know a lot of people. I get the messages, I get the text messages and everything else, and the DMs about those other series that I'm doing, which is education, law enforcement, veterans and small business owners. It's about 7 ones, about really 6 now that I've done all the interviewing all the local political people that I'm doing. I'm doing those. Matter of fact, we'll probably be doing this week, or either this week or next week. We'll probably shoot it this week, an education one with some great, very smart PhD brothers who are ready to talk about education and its effect on black, children and stuff like that. I will continue to do those, and I am going to continue to do those. But listen, for these next 100 days, a little over 100 days, I'm going to have to do what I'm going to have to do to interrupt, to come in and say, hey, I just need to talk to y'all. I need for y'all to hear from these brothers and these sisters, about what's really going on and what's happening over these next 100 days with this presidential election. Okay, and y'all know I stuck it out for the local stuff. I think I did some 20 interviews of local, politicians or so, and I only supposed to do 4 races, but I end up doing many, many more than that because it's important. Okay, about wore me out, but it is important to do this, and now it's important for me to do this for the next 100 days. So the other contributors and stuff, my political guys, you know who you are. I'll be calling on you just as well as I'll be calling these 2 gentlemen to come out and put things out. Look, we've gone over 2 hours, and all statistics show you that you better stay under 60 minutes if you're gonna if you want anybody to pay attention. Well, let me tell you this right here. I know the power of the voice of black men. Okay, when Barack Obama came on the scene, and I hear all of these non-melanated people saying, "Oh my God, he's such an orator. He's like the best orator, the greatest orator I've ever seen in my life." For us, Barack Obama ain't no more than one of our uncles who be late everywhere, but he can get up there. I believe that if you started watching this tonight, or this whenever you watching it, the recorded version, is you stayed for the entire time, just like the 3 of us did last night to midnight for the Win with Black Men discussion. Every one of us on that call, we did not go away. We stayed till there was 4,000 or 5,000 men left on there when there was over 20,000 that was there. So, so I want to say, I hope you enjoyed this. Yes, it's very, very long, but it's very important. I first want to talk about or summarize with I want to talk about the black people and what they have done in America to save this democracy. We talk a lot about black women saving the democracy, and we are absolutely right. Black women have done their due diligence since they've been able to vote. But we got to understand something. There are some people that you won't even call old today by the time black women got their right to vote. Okay? So, but what I would tell you, black men, we've saved this country. We've saved this democracy as well. They always call on us when the country is about to just go to straight hell in the handbasket. We can go all the way back to Reconstruction, the Reconstruction period. Okay, when if you go in the halls of Congress and you see all of these black men, Hiram Rebels and others in these you can tell these pictures, these photographs or whatever was back in the back in the 1800s, right? Remember, slavery was ended in 1865, right? So this era after the Civil War was called Reconstruction. And so the United States was falling apart after the Civil War. Civil War would tear apart any country. It would take down any country. Countries usually fall from within, not from without, right? And so this country was doing just that. It was falling from within. And you know what they knew? You know what they understood? They gave black men the right to vote. And guess what they did? They started voting all these guys that you see back in these pictures in the 1800s being congressmen. A lot of them from Mississippi, South Carolina, and all this stuff. Not going to, like I said, give a dissertation. But, and you know what? They did a lot of fixing and helping get this country, out of, helping it get to Reconstruction for real. Helping it get to Reconstruction, which was the time period of that era called. Right after this thing got fixed, they like, okay, it's time to get rid of these people. We got this thing fixed, and they showed that movie. What's that movie, y'all? They showed in the White House, Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation. Yeah.
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation. Yep. And if you haven't seen it, here's another homework assignment. Google it. Birth of a Nation. It's basically Google Birth of a Nation. It's basically where white actors in blackface basically running around raping and it was so old that there's no sound, right? There's just motion picture only. Right. And and these black men just running around just raping and white women and all this kind of stuff, and they show it in the White House, and then it's like the most popular film, on the planet, and it's like, okay, that's the justification to get rid of these guys. And guess what? They kicked all those guys out of Congress, and I believe, don't quote me on this, but do your research, I think the next time that there was another black congressman was in 1963. That's how long.
That's about right.
Yeah, that's how long it was before there was another black congressman, from Reconstruction to 1963. I say that to say to you, it happened again, you see. It happened again in 2006, 2007, when this nation was having an economic collapse, a housing market, collapse due to greed, okay? Due to greed. And they're like, you know what? This thing is about to fall so far, we need more than just black men in Congress, in the lower and upper chamber. We need a black man in the White House to fix this mess. So comes Barack Obama, another black man to fix this thing. And he was reelected because they know the work wasn't done. But usually, just like with the extreme that they did after Reconstruction of showing black men pillaging and raping white women, you see, after things are fixed, then they go to the extreme, most racist crap that they can find. They did the exact same thing after Barack Obama fixed this economy, fixed this country from going to a place where then you come up with who? Donald John Trump. That's your extreme this time. But guess what? People know that we're at an extreme now. You see, they know that, they thought they wanted him, but they know now that Donald Trump say all the quiet parts, all the dog whistles out loud with a bullhorn. He let out so many things that conservative, white, and then someone say the word racist people did not want it to be heard, like the Heritage Foundations and others. Donald Trump just spewing all that stuff out. That man don't even look like he can keep a secret, right? And so he's spewing it all out. So it's like, we got to get rid of this bumbling fool. And so they really don't want him there. They really don't want him there. Because if they wanted him there, then there would not be 3 or 4 black women and 1 black man right now prosecuting this man, and every single legal thing he got is black people doing it. Once again, they're fixing it. Because guess what? Letitia James and Fonnie Willis and all these other ones, they don't give a crap. They're not going to buy off into it's what black people do, and guess what? Everybody knows it. Even those conservatives. It's like, nope, put all black people on him. Right now, it looked like black women is Trump kryptonite, especially now that Kamala Harris is about to get him. And she's going to prosecute him. She's going to prosecute him without being in the court. She's going to prosecute him in the court of public opinion over the next 100 days, which to me is the strongest court in America. That's where she's going to get him. And so I just wanted to start with that. I also just want to say that win with Black Man call that we were all on last night, I want you guys to know something right now. Is you hear in the news how in 2 hours, they raised $1.2 million in 2 hours, okay? And now I think it's up to 1.4 or something like that, 1.5, okay? But whatever it is, it was 2 hours. You say, well, how long did they have to do it? They started planning that event 12 hours out. 12 hours. It started at 8 o'clock on last night, and it went to midnight. They started at 8 o'clock on, Sunday night? Because yesterday was Monday. Yeah, Sunday night. 12 hours. 12 hours. People know that we can unify, and people know how powerful we are. Black man, black woman, you need to understand how powerful we are, because they know. And right now, our brows are so raised that it look like everybody got Botox around here. Okay? And so, yeah. And so, and I just wanted to say that. And if you ever get a chance to watch that, I don't know if it's being recorded or whatever, but I really want for you, black people, all people, to pay attention to Brother Bakari's Sellers. And I want you to listen and look at what this brother, it was, every black man on that call, I guarantee it, his eyes welled up just like that brother's did. And that's all I'm going to say about that, okay? Because black men, we are human. And we are very emotional, but in the right way, okay? And I'm not speaking like, well, all black men are the same, we're monolithic. No, if you go in there, there's something already wrong with you, to me. And the other thing I want to say is I talked about it a little bit. I spoke on it just a minute when I said that black people, African Americans, are the most savviest voters, voters in America. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, black people don't give a crap about party. You know what I'm saying? Black people were Republicans when Republicans were about, our needs, okay? Mm-hmm. And, and then, the whole thing with the Dixiecrats and all that stuff. And we like, oh, no, okay, y'all kind of racist. And then we kind of just left. That's what we do, okay? So when people say, black people vote color and all this kind of stuff, brother, don't believe that stuff. Well, if that's the case, we say, well, what about all these other 6 presidents? Well, what were you, or we can't, I guess 43 presidents or whatever. Well, what were you voting in? Okay, but what I'm going to say is what makes us so savvy is that when you have to vote for your life on every single election that we've been able to vote on since we've been able to vote, we have to vote for our lives. You have to be savvy. I want the Democratic Party to listen to me and understand this right now. We don't have the luxury to play games. We don't have the luxury to keep to make the white silent. Yes, this is the black man's round table. We was on the black win with black men. We don't have the luxury. Good Morning America can say Good Morning America. They got to say Good Morning White because guess what? Everybody sitting there is white. They can leave the white silent. So we don't have, and I want Democrats to understand, we do not have the luxury to play games with our vote. So we're very savvy. We know, Democratic Party, listen, black people are the base. Listen, we're very savvy. We know what we're doing. We're voting for our lives like we always do. And guess what? I would say African Americans are probably the most savvy, and I'm not going to be talking about I know world history, some world history person, but at the bottom line is I know one thing. Here's what I know. I would say that African Americans are probably the most savvy voters in the world simply because in all the world, we the only one that experienced chattel slavery. Chattel slavery. Slavery been all over the world, but chattel slavery is mostly unique to right here in America. Yeah. So I would put us up against anybody as far as voting for our lives. And the last thing I want to say and hopefully on a more positive note, let me make sure it's the last. Let's see. Reconstruction. Okay. I do want to say this. Well, they both are positive, good things. Okay. And all these things are positive. It's not whether we're trying to be positive or negative. We're just being real tonight on the Black Man's Roundtable, like we always do. We have a lot of up and coming, younger, black, African American, or people who identify as such, because race is a made up construct. Don't blame me. I didn't make it up.
Right.
But of people who are African American people who are coming up. And there was some on that call last night, and y'all know that, to include the governor of Maryland. Yeah. Okay? And they were on that call, and they are all over the place. And what I'm telling you, they are up and coming. Everybody knows it. It's quite a few of them. There's about 6 you can just pop out of your mouth, and they are coming. And they are just as likable, or whatever you want to call it, as Barack Obama and Kamala Harris and others. So I just want to put that out there, and it's scaring a lot of people. It ain't just Kamala Harris. It ain't just Vice President Harris that's scaring people. There's a whole lot of people in the dugout. I'm telling y'all that.
Jasmine Crockett,
absolutely.
Another.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They out there. And the other thing I want to say is this. Democrats, I think this is a perfect opportunity for you to take advantage. You couldn't hardly write this script any better than what's happening right now as far as the timing, as far as when Joe Biden, decided to step down, and Kamala Harris will have to go through a whole, cycle of being elected and stuff. And you even got a couple of, and look, guys, I would definitely let you guys get the final word, but before I do, I just want to say, look, you're going to see these gentlemen. Like I said, I'm going to continue to do all of these other series that I'm going to do. But look, there's going to be times where we're going to have to come on here and we're going to have to really talk to people, let people know what's going on, share this stuff, get it out there. And I just want to thank you two guys. Like I said, you are you are more than contributors, but you are you've been on episodes You guys are outstanding. You bring the truth. You speak truth to power. And so I just want to thank you one more time before I say my final sign out little thing that I say. But with that, final words, Brother Fryer.
I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to come here and speak. As for the Democratic Party, there's definitely been a re-energizing around Kamala Harris. It is basically given the D9 the jolt that we need to come together for this election. The only thing close to this I felt is when Barack Obama ran. I truly feel that, and I just look forward to what I believe is coming. And America needs to take a look at itself. And as you mentioned earlier, Rodney, when we were on our financial knees, a black man took this country and put it back on its rightful path. Put it back. So that's just a fact. And a lot of times Barack Obama, I think, gets overlooked in what he actually accomplished over 8 years. And here we are now with a constitutional crisis. And this time it's a black woman that's being asked to come save the country. I don't think that's ironic, but it is what it is. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to come on here and speak. Again, just speaking truth to power. Mr. Rodney here has shared some great information. I hope everybody has listened on that. But we feel very energized about what's going forward. And it's about making this country better, okay? Progressive, not going back, better. So as Dr. King said, live up to what you said on paper. That's what I hold America accountable for. I'm a veteran, so I can speak from that behalf as well on what we were taught. But thank you again for the opportunity, Rodney, to speak on these issues, and I pray that everyone have a blessed night.
Thank you, brother. Mr. Little.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I got to meet my brother Friday night. So nice to be able to be on the same platform with you, sir. Look forward to being on others.
Likewise.
And Rodney Butler, please, thank you so much for inviting me and for the work that you do. What I want to say to the audience, it's very important that you understand that this race is not about Republican, Democrat, Independent. What it's about is saving our democracy. There's room at the table for anyone who doesn't want to be under a dictator or ruled by a felon, an adjudicated rapist. That's what this race is about. So we're looking for independents, real Republicans who believe in this country and believe in the Constitution. And of course, Democrats. That's the coalition that has to come together to save this nation. It's bigger than just party. It's about country.
Thank you, brother. Vote, people. Vote. And until next time, we will see you in those streets and those suites. Peace. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.